Aparo tabwera ndi zina zimene wayankha mkulu kapena kuja amati wawa Malawi wawa Instagram X4 tabweranso ndi zina zimene wayankhula kapena kuti wayankha Dr. Kaipa. Kodi ameneyi mukumudziwa? Ameneyi ndi mkulu uja Minister of Defense nduna umene umayang'ana nkhani zachitetezo mdziko muno. Kodi inu mwamva zimene wayankha? Kuli kukolana kuli kukolana ndi azizake kumeneko akhalirana masaka. Kodi mwamva? Winatu wakana koma wina wavomera kuti ayi ndithu zimatere lili ndi maiventole kumeneko. Tete ntoleni limodzi program imeneyi yakafukufuku wa ndege. Kodi inu mukuzimva, mukuzidziwa izi? Tapangani like, tapangani subscribe.
I, Gift Chancellor Dula, Secretary for Defense,
do solemnly swear
by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you, Honorable Minister and the Principal Secretary. You haven't taken oath, you're now free to give your testimony. You may have brought a presentation, you can talk through your presentation, depending on what you're comfortable to do with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and the honorable members present. Indeed, I have a presentation and I'll speak to my presentation. So, first of all, I'd like to appreciate the invitation that I received from this committee to appear so that the Minister of Defense and indeed myself as Minister of Defense, I can provide some information to this committee to assist in the work that this committee is undertaking. I have a presentation, copies of which have also been shared, and I'll be taking this honorable committee through the mandate of the Minister of Defense and the mandate of the Malawi Defense Force, the oversight roles and functions of the Minister of Defense over military assets vis-a-vis assets of the Malawi Defense Force, the policy frameworks that govern utilization of the military assets, authorization and accountability framework that also guide the utilization of military assets, of course zeroing in on military aircrafts, the standard operating procedures that we use at the Malawi Defense Force as well as at the Ministry of Defense, the interaction framework that is there between the civilian and military authorities, as well as the air safety and accident investigation procedures that are laid down to be followed by both the Ministry of Defense as well as the Malawi Defense Force. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, as such, what I've just shared will form the structure of my presentation, which I believe will respond to the issues that Honorable Chairperson you just raised in your introductory remarks. To start with, the mandate of the Minister of Defense. The Minister of Defense, you may wish to know that it was established in 1993 through a presidential decree, with responsibilities, amongst others, that include formulation and implementation of defense policies, provision of strategic oversight and civilian control of the Malawi Defense Force, managing defense resources and ensuring accountability in their utilization, advising government on matters relating to national defense and security, coordinating defense-related activities with other government ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as international partners. Honorable Chairperson and members, the Ministry exercises a civilian oversight over the Malawi Defense Force, while operational command and control of military assets remain vested in the commander of the Malawi Defense Force through the established military chain of command. Allow me, Honorable Chairperson, just to take again on this one as a matter of emphasis that whilst the Ministry of Defense exists, it is important to note that the civilian oversight that the Ministry of Defense exercises over the Malawi Defense Force vis-a-vis over the military operations of the Malawi Defense Force, the operational command and control of military assets is vested in the commander of the Malawi Defense Force, otherwise called the Chief of Defense Force, through established military chain of command. The mandate of the Malawi Defense Force, on the other hand, is derived from Chapter 16 of the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi. Chapter 16 of the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi, specifically Section 159, establishes the Malawi Defense Force as the only military force constituted in Malawi and regulated in accordance with the Constitution and other related pieces of legislation. Going further, within the same Constitution, Section 160 provides the constitutional position of the Malawi Defense Force, which is to operate at all times under the direction of civil authorities in whom the Constitution vests such powers, so as to uphold the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Republic of Malawi, to uphold and protect the constitutional order in the Republic of Malawi, provide technical expertise and resources to assist the civilian authorities in the maintenance of essential services in times of emergency, and perform such other duties outside the territory of Malawi as may be required by any treaty to which Malawi is a signatory in accordance with international prescriptions of international law. Honorable Chairperson and members, let it be known that no person or authority may direct or deploy the Malawi Defense Force to act in contravention of these constitutional provisions. No person or authority may direct or deploy the Malawi Defense Force to act in contravention of these constitutional provisions. Section 161 of the Constitution of Malawi provides the responsibilities of the Malawi Defense Force, with the ultimate responsibility of the Malawi Defense Force vesting in the President of this Republic as Commander-in-Chief. The command of the Malawi Defense Force vests in the Commander of the Malawi Defense Force, which in short we just say the CDF. And this is provided for in Section 11 of the Defense Force Act. The Commander of the Defense Force, or the Chief of the Defense Force, is appointed by the President, but is accountable to the Minister of Defense in the day-to-day management of the Malawi Defense Force. This is in accordance with Section 161, subsection 2, and subsection 3 of the Constitution of Malawi. Powers of the President, as vested in the Constitution, are exercised on the recommendations of the Defense Council that is established under the Defense Force Act, Act number 24 of 2023. Honorable Chairperson and members, the Defense Force Act provides for the function operations of the Malawi Defense Force. The Malawi Defense Force, as you rightly pointed out, Honorable Chairperson, consists of 4 services, namely the Army, Air Force, Maritime Force, or otherwise called the Navy, and the National Service. This is again in accordance with Section 4, subsection 1 of the Defense Force Act. The Defense Council that is established is responsible for the superintendents, where in this case superintendents we are talking about supervision control, and management, and also administration of the Malawi Defence Force. This is in accordance with Section 5, Subsection 1 of the Defence Force Act. Section 5, Subsection 2 of the same Act provides that the Defence Council shall consist of the Minister of Defence as the chairperson, the High Command of the Malawi Defence Force, and the High Command of the Malawi Defence Force includes the Commander, the Deputy Commander, and the Chief of Staff, and the Secretary to the President and Cabinet, otherwise called the Chief Secretary to the Government, the Solicitor General, Service Commanders, the four services that I mentioned. That's the Commander of the Army, Commander of the Navy, Commander of the Malawi National Service, and Commander of the Air Force. They also form part of the Defense Council. And also the Chief of Legal Services in the Malawi Defense Force, as well as the Principal Secretary of the Ministry of Defense as Secretary of the Defense Council. The Defense Council, Honorable Chairperson and members, has powers to determine the operational use of the Malawi Defense Force, appoint and remove senior officers and other members of the Malawi Defense Force. This is in accordance to Section 161, subsection 4 of the Constitution, as well as whilst powers that are exercised under this Constitution, they are exercised under the scrutiny of the Defense and Security Committee of the National Assembly. The defense, as a matter of fact, the Constitution under Section 162 establishes this committee. The Defense Force Act, Section 6, outlines further the responsibilities of the Defense Council, which include formulation and monitoring of the implementation of the National Defense Policy, reviewing and receiving and acting on reports submitted to the Council by the Minister of Defense, as well as the Chief of Defense Force, advising and making recommendations to the Commander-in-Chief vis-à-vis the President on any matters relating to or affecting the Malawi Defense Force, overseeing the deployment and operations of the Malawi Defense Force in accordance with the Defense Force Act as well as the Constitution, making rules and regulations for the Malawi Defense Force, and indeed carrying out any other responsibilities that would be considered relevant for the operations of the Malawi Defense Force. With regard to oversight of military aviation assets, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, the Minister of Defense exercises oversight responsibility over the assets of the Malawi Defense Force through policy direction and strategic accountability mechanisms. The operational management of military aircrafts is undertaken by the Malawi Defense Force, again, as you rightly mentioned, Honorable Chairperson, through the Malawi Air Force and other designated military aviation structures whose responsibilities include aircraft operation and mission execution, air crew training and certification, aircraft maintenance and airworthiness management, flight safety management, compliance with military aviation regulations and procedures. The Ministry of Defense receives regular reports and briefings on the status, utilization, maintenance, and operational readiness of aviation assets to ensure accountability and effective resource management. Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, the policies that govern utilization of military aviation include, as I mentioned earlier on, of course, the Constitution itself as the main law of the land, the Defense Force Act of 2023, standard aviation procedures in line with International Civil Aviation Organization, Malawi Defense Force standing orders and aviation regulations, flight safety regulations and procedures, and other applicable international aviation standards and protocols. The Malawi Defense Force aviation assets Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, that utilized for national defense and security operations as would be expected, but they are also used for training and operational readiness activities for the Malawi Defense Force, emergency response and disaster relief operations. These would be national, as perhaps in some cases would be determined and dictated by the Disaster Management Department. These aviation assets are also utilized for medical evacuation missions where this would be deemed necessary. The same are used for search and rescue operations, other official government duties, and of course, humanitarian and national interest missions. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, all flights are required to be properly authorized, planned, documented, and conducted in accordance with applicable operational and safety procedures. When we are talking about all these that I mentioned, like national defense, training, emergency response, medical evacuation, search and rescue, all these are supposed to be undertaken after being properly authorized, planned, documented, and of course conducted in accordance with applicable operational and safety procedures. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, with regard to authorization and accountability framework, usage of the Malawi Defense Force assets, particularly aircrafts, follows an established chain of authorization, or indeed chain of command. Depending on the nature of the mission or the activity, approval may be granted by designated military authorities. That's the chain of command. And the accountability framework includes mission authorization procedures, flight planning and risk assessment, air crew qualification requirements, aircraft management certification, post-flight reporting mechanisms, accident and incident reporting procedures. These measures are intended to promote safety, accountability, and operational effectiveness. Honorable Chairperson and members, the standard operating procedures for hiring Malawi Defense Force assets include formal request that is submitted to the Malawi Defense Force by the entity or institution that would be requiring these services, government, ministry, department or agency, or indeed a corporate organization. It can also be an individual. And such kind of request would indicate the purpose of the trip, the flight, justification for requiring military air transport and not any other transport, proposed itinerary, and the passengers that are expected to be on this trip. The Malawi Defense Force commander commands designated military authorities to execute the request based on availability of the asset and also the national need or the need that has been indicated in the request. The assets of the Malawi Defense Force can also be used for other commercial purposes. And in this case, the same requisitioning is supposed to happen. And where these are to be used for commercial purposes, then it is expected that a pro forma invoice or an invoice will be issued and the payment has got to be made for such kind of commercial purposes. The Malawi Defense Force has deployed some of its assets in carrying or delivering fertilizers, for example, delivering of examinations, public examinations administered by the Malawi National Examinations Board. And these usually would be cases and situations of delivering these items in very hard to reach areas, because the Malawi Defense Force has got types of assets that would go to very hard to reach areas, be it vehicles as well as the aircrafts. The interaction of the Malawi Defense Force as well as the interaction of the Ministry of Defense with the civilian as well as military authorities, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, the Malawi Defense Force in this kind of arrangement serves as the principal interface between government and the Malawi Defense Force on defense matters. So the interaction between civilian and military authorities in aviation matters hinges on policy, coordination, emergency response, and state missions. When it comes to policy and strategic direction, Honorable Chairperson and members, government through the Ministry of Defense provides policy guidance, while the military executes operations within approved frameworks. In the matters of coordination, coordination is done with the civil aviation authorities, so the military operations are coordinated with relevant civil aviation authorities to ensure safe and orderly use of national airspace. And such coordination would include flight clearance, airspace management, flight information sharing, air traffic coordination, safety and management response arrangements. With regard to national emergency operations, the Malawi Defense Force assets are frequently used to support civilian authorities during disasters, humanitarian emergencies, medical evacuations, as I mentioned earlier on, and other national emergencies. VIP and state missions, the Malawi Defense Force assets are also utilized for official state functions and transport of government officials when duly authorized following the chain of command of the Malawi Defense Force and establish the structures as per the procedures. Honorable Chairperson and members, air safety and accident investigation procedures, again within the Malawi Defense Force, these follow appropriate procedures, and they are considered to be of very paramount importance. So in the event of an aircraft accident or serious incident, established procedures require that immediate reporting has got to be done through the military chain of command. As the reporting is being done, measures have got to be undertaken to ensure preservation of evidence, so that when investigations are undertaken, there should be some evidence that can be relied upon. The procedures also require that technical and operational investigations have got to be undertaken, and that's why I mentioned that there is need for preservation of evidence. But such also require that there should be cooperation with relevant government agencies and specialized investigators as need arises. And of course, upon undertaking such investigations, implementation of any recommendations that can arise from the investigations. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, as Minister of Defense, we are very committed to ensuring that whenever such kind of investigations are undertaken, they have to remain to be transparent, accountable, as well as the recommendations that come out of such should ensure continuous improvement of aviation safety standards in the military operations. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, in conclusion, I would like to state that the Ministry of Defense exercises civilian oversight over the Malawi Defense Force, aviation assets, through policy formulation, as I mentioned earlier on, strategic guidance, resource management and accountability mechanisms. Operational responsibility for the Malawi Defense Force aircrafts, of course, remains under the Malawi Defense Force command structure, as I mentioned earlier on, and as established by the relevant pieces of legislation. The utilization of military aviation assets, again, is governed by the constitution provisions, legislations, statutory requirements, military regulations, and applicable aviation safety procedures. And there is effective coordination between civilian authorities and military institutions, which remains essential in ensuring that there is safety, efficiency, accountability in our aviation operations to ensure and deliver national interest. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, again, I wish to reiterate that the Ministry of Defense is committed to cooperating with this ad hoc committee in ensuring that the investigations and the inquiry that you undertaken, as Minister of Defense, we are available to provide any additional information that may assist this committee to discharge its mandate. I thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, for your kind attention.
Honorable Minister, we appreciate the time and effort made to prepare this presentation. Well presented. Members may have follow-up questions. Maybe they want to seek clarifications. I'll open the floor to members to engage with you. Starting with Zomba Tondwe, Mayani later.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you, Honourable Minister of Defence, for an elaborate presentation. Just points of clarification. You mentioned that on operational matters, the Chief of the Defence Force reports to the Ministry of Defence. I'm asking that because earlier on we got information that the Army Command, the Chief of the Defence Force, reports to some specific officers. So I wanted you to confirm that the Chief of the Defence Force reports to the Minister of Defence through the Secretary of Defence and not the Minister of Defence. It's, I want you to confirm if it's through the Secretary and not the Minister. And two, I wanted you to also confirm, just a moment. Yeah, so you said the Secretary of the Minister of Defence is also a Secretary of the Defence Council. I'm sure it's to safeguard the interests of the operation aspect so that he gets, the ministry gets direct information in the Defence Council. That's my assumption. Maybe just confirm that for now. I can't see my other question, Chair. I may come back later. I had 3 questions, but I think I'm just seeing one. So my request is to ask the Honourable Minister if he can confirm that reporting lines from the commander of the Malawi Defence Force is through the Secretary of Defence and not the Minister. Thank you.
There's Mayani.
Chair, thank you very much for giving an opportunity to people of the Zamayani to ask him, the Minister. Would you, Chair, would you please allow me to engage the Minister on a few questions?
Yes, how many questions have you got?
About 4, Chair.
About 4, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after your questions, then I'll ask the Minister to respond before taking more questions. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair, for your guidance. Minister of Defence, I really appreciate your presentation. And I just wanted also to declare that as members of the public or as a civilian, we were beneficiaries of the civilian or public activities that are offered by the Malawi Defence Force during the last season of delivery of the fertilizer, the subsidized fertilizer. My area has challenges with transport, so we benefited much by use by your vehicles, the Malawi Defence Force vehicles. Without them, my people couldn't have benefited. So we are beneficiaries of the civilian activities offered by the Malawi Defence Force. Just to concur a bit with Zomba Tondwe, Chair, I just wanted to clearly understand the reporting lines or the way you are structured. Especially, I would like if you can draw a structure, placing in your narrative, in your reply, placing where the PS is, the MDF commander is, and then you connect with the minister and also the commander-in-chief. Chair, I'm emphasizing on the point by Zomba Tondwe because if that line is not clear, then we might be finding ourselves in that. So this one, don't reply because you replied together with the Zomwe. But where I wanted us to engage, Honorable Minister, in your presentation, you have emphasized a lot on the policies. And the previous presenter, the former key principal secretary of the Ministry of Defense, highlighted that there is a draft policy, that's the defense policy. I would like you to confirm to this report, to this committee, if there is a defense policy which needs revision, or if there is no defense policy in operation currently. Because you have referred so much to policies, and I wanted you to confirm if the previous submission by the former principal secretary, which he said the defense policy is in a draft form, and I wanted you to confirm if indeed you are operating without a defense policy. That's my first one in our engagement. Thank you, Chair. I would like to get that, then I'll follow up with the other questions.
Minister, you may take those questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and I would like to thank Honorable Member from Zomwe and also Honorable Member from Zinabisika for the questions. From Honorable Member from Zomwe, the operational matters regarding day-to-day operations. I think I did allude to the fact that for the day-to-day management of the Malawi Defense Force, the commander, or rather the chief of the Defense Force, is accountable to the Minister of Defense. So, Honorable Chairperson, I would like the committee to understand that as provided for in the Constitution, Section 161, which clearly stipulates that the commander or the chief of the Defense Force is accountable to the Minister of Defense in the day-to-day management of the Malawi Defense Force. It's already provided for in the Constitution. Now, when we are talking about accountability, Honorable Chairperson, accountability can happen in so many other ways. But when we're talking about accountability, what it means is for anything that happens within the Malawi Defense Force, the chief of the Defense Force is answerable to the Minister of Defense, if I'm to use a different word. Otherwise, the Constitution uses the word accountable, meaning that the Chief of Defense Force would be answerable to the Minister of Defense for the day-to-day management of the Malawi Defense Force. Now, when we are talking about the day-to-day management of the Malawi Defense Force, reporting, I think there could be an event or an issue that has happened at the Malawi Defense Force, perhaps the Minister is not in the office. That does not preclude the Chief of Defense Force to reach out to the Secretary for Defense. He can reach out to the Secretary for Defense to report on matters that have happened within the Malawi Defense Force. But that does not constitute being accountable. So what it means is the Chief of Defense Force is, as stipulated by the Constitution, accountable to the Minister of Defense for the day-to-day management of the Malawi Defense Force. So if I'm to relate that to the question from Zinabisika, again, if I'm to draw a structure with the commander in chief of the Malawi Defense Force, as I mentioned earlier on, that again, according to the Constitution, Section 161 again, ultimate responsibility of the Malawi Defense Force vests with the commander in chief. And I think, as the name suggests, the president is the commander in chief. Meaning anything that happens again in the military, in the Malawi Defense Force, including the Minister of Defense, just like all the other structures of government, being the commander in chief, the president holds ultimate responsibility of the Malawi Defense Force. So if I was to draw a line as regards to how the reporting structures are happening within the Malawi Defense Force, and in relation to the Minister of Defense, again, the Constitution provides those reporting lines very, very clearly, and is supported by the Defense Force Act, particularly with the establishment of the Defense Council, which is another structure within which the Malawi Defense Force, as well as the Minister of Defense, reports to the Commander-in-Chief, because all resolutions of the Defense Council are reported back to the Commander-in-Chief vis-a-vis the President, meaning that the President is always apprised of what is going on within the Ministry of Defense as well as within the Malawi Defense Force through the Defense Council. So, Honorable Chairperson and members, the Defense Council would be equated to any ordinary board of directors for any organization. That's what I would simply relate it to say this is as good as a board of directors. But ours is a Defense Council, so the Commander-in-Chief is apprised of what goes on within the Malawi Defense Force as well as within the Ministry of Defense through, again, the Defense Council as the ultimate decision-making body of the Ministry of Defense together with the Malawi Defense Force. And related to that, the question that came, the Secretary for Defense, yes, I can confirm that the Secretary for Defense, again, in accordance with the Defense Force Act, is indeed a member of the Defense Council. And the Secretary for Defense sits in the Defense Council as a Secretary of the Defense Council. And myself, as Minister of Defense, I sit in the Council as Chairperson of the Defense Council. The other observations from the Zamayani, we appreciate also your acknowledgement of the work that the Malawi Defense Force did in delivering fertilizers in your constituency, just like we did in other constituencies as well. Thank you very much for that acknowledgement. I think the issue about, I hope I've managed to clarify on the reporting lines between the Minister of Defense, the Commander or the Chief of Defense Force, as well as the Commander-in-Chief. And indeed, I must state, Chair, here that, again, just like any organization, should there be any issues that the Commander-in-Chief would like to find out from the Chief of Defense, again, there is no law or legislation that prevents the Commander-in-Chief to check or reach out to the Chief of Defense Force for any information that he might wish to have. Equal reasons, again, with your indulgence, Chair, and I hope even Ilongomudo will permit me not to get into those details, but I think the lessons that we've learned through this accident, it will be very, very necessary to consider having black boxes in the military aircrafts for obvious reasons. Confirmation of any documents on acquiring on how the aircraft was acquired by the late Vice President. I would like to confirm, Honorable Chairperson, that I haven't seen any document that indicates how the Vice President acquired usage of this aircraft. Let me stop there, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Dowa Kasangaze, and then Kasungu North. We probably will wind up with Mulanje North.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Zomba as well. Sorry, and then I have Zomba City South.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving the people of Lower Kasangadze a chance to ask some questions. I have two questions for the Honorable Minister. The first question is on the fact that we are told that whenever the Vice President would like to acquire an aircraft from the military, the President of the Republic as Commander-in-Chief has to approve. I would like to know, Honorable Minister, if you are aware of this requirement and if the Ministry of Defense is involved in that process. That's the first question. The second question is on the fact that we have been told that the aircraft that was involved in the accident in 2024 was acquired around 1986, and that it was 40 years old, around 40 years old. I would like to know if your ministry has plans to acquire new aircrafts. Thank you very much, Chair.
Kasungu North.
Thank you, Chair. Kasungu North has got only one question to ask the Honorable Minister. My question is, what formal or informal defense cooperation arrangements exist between Malawi and neighboring countries regarding aviation emergencies? Thank you, Chair.
Minister, you may take those two submissions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. Honorable member for the Kasangazi is saying that I suppose we are informed is this committee, or is this committee is informed that the VP, when the VP would want to hire an aircraft, would need approval from the president, who is the commander-in-chief. So as I mentioned again, Chairperson, I will take you back to my presentation where I presented the procedures that are followed when hiring the aircraft, which is on number 7, where a formal request or a formal memo has got to be submitted by the government ministry, department or agency, stating the purpose of the trip and why military equipment would be required for such kind of a trip, and everything else that follows. And this section mentions that the commander of the defense force is the one who would now manage all this process. Now, when it comes to the vice president, obviously the expectation would be the office of the vice president writing such kind of memo. But understanding the difference between the office of the vice president and other ministries and departments, the assertion that this would require approval of the commander-in-chief could be very right, because we are talking about the office of the vice president, which perhaps basically would also be understood as being very close to the office of the vice president being very, very close to the office of the president. It makes more sense to ensure that the commander-in-chief also gets to be aware of the need by the vice president to use the military aircraft. I would consider this to be a different arrangement, and not being an ordinary arrangement like the laid down procedures, because of the office that we're talking about, because this is a VVIP office. And talking about since moving on to the next question, which is the aircraft that got involved in this accident having been acquired in 1986, about 40 years old. The number of years, honorable member, may not really be an issue of concern, but whether the aircraft went through the regular maintenance which is required, which is a requirement, because an aircraft is different from a motor vehicle. An aircraft, I think, just like maybe a ship, these are matters that, these are pieces of equipment that live very, very long. As long as regular maintenance and repair works are done, and refurbishments, because for aircrafts, in some cases, you know, some parts would be removed even before the aircraft flies, just because the mandatory number of years has elapsed. So aircraft's maintenance follows a different ballgame altogether, different from what you'd consider to be an ordinary maintenance of an equipment. So 40 years is not really much of a problem, but whether the routine maintenance and the compliance with the appropriate aviation regulations were followed. So plans to acquire new aircraft, yes. When I got into office as Minister of Defense and went around to appreciate the nature or status of equipment that the military is using, Malawi Air Force is one such unit that is requiring a lot of investment. So we have plans, yes, to acquire an aircraft, particularly that we lost this one in the accident. So it just makes it mandatory that we should think of a replacement sooner than later. Honorable Chairperson, from Kasungu North, formal cooperation, aviation cooperation with other partners, yes, we have such kind of cooperation, and not only in aviation or Air Force specifically, but we have different and several military cooperation with other nations within Africa and even beyond Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Mulanje North?
For point of order, Chair.
Yes. Just put on your mic.
Yeah, you remember when I asked 3 questions, I said I have a few remaining. So I don't know, maybe after Mulanje.
Yeah, I will recognize it. I just want to give a chance to others that haven't spoken.
Thank
then
you.
I'll come to you. Mulanje North?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, from the presentation, I think on the, is it slide number 9, air safety and accident investigation procedures. There is a very beautiful, layout on the procedures that are supposed to be followed. But my question is with respect to the accident of 10th June 2024, where these followed. You having perused the reports that were before you in your office. Just one example is on the preservation of evidence. You may agree with me that after the accident, the social media was awash with graphic pictures of the victims, very appalling state of events, which were supposed to be properly preserved, for the integrity and the dignity of the victims. Another quick example is that the plane that was involved in the Macedonia, it was taken from Tungwa, is now at the Air Force Base in Zomba. And it is not in the manner in which it was. It is actually shredded. It is now in pieces. It's in pieces, just to use the simple explanation. So I just wanted to know whether these procedures were adhered to following the accident. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, maybe we just take another question from Zomba City South, so we can manage time, and then I'll come to Mwanza.
Chairperson, it might not be one question. Being a vice chair, I think I'm privileged to have more than one question. Honourable Minister, I have several. I will start with your last response. You said there are plans to procure new planes. And I just wanted also to remind you that as you're preparing to procure new planes, you might also want to look around within the barracks. If there are other new planes that are not being flown, maybe because we don't have skills, maybe you might want to prioritize those ones before we start buying more new planes. Just an advice, in case there are new planes that are just lying idle. Chairperson, my next one is to take also the minister to slide number 3, I think on page 3. The last sentence where you said no person or authority may direct or deploy the MDF to act in contravention, etc., etc. What I have in mind is that we are talking about the commander-in-chief being of the overall boss of the military. This means that even the VP cannot move the military, the MDF, to do anything without the head of state, the commander-in-chief, knowing. Meaning, as you have responded, the procurement of the plane that is in question, you are telling us that the second citizen could not procure without the head of state, the commander-in-chief, knowing. I just want you to confirm that before I move to the next question.
Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, if I can quickly come to this, I think the procurement that we're talking about here is procuring the aircraft services, not necessarily procuring the aircraft. So I think I mentioned about this earlier on to say, considering the office that we are talking about, this is the office of the Vice President. Despite the other arrangements that we have, the standing arrangements that we have with regard to acquiring services of aircrafts from Malawi Air Force, where the ministry or department agency is required to issue a requisitioning memo, etc., etc. I did mention that considering the nature of this office, the office of the Vice President, I mentioned that it's very close to that of the President anyway, more or less like the same presidency. So I wouldn't really think that the Vice President would acquire usage of an aircraft without the principal knowing. Because in any case, my expectation is when the Vice President is traveling, he must take leave of the principal. So as he's taking leave of the principal, certainly the principal would also want to know what sort of transport mode this the Vice President is undertaking. So I would consider it to be very important for the Office of the Vice President to write the Office of the Vice President, write the Office of the President and Cabinet, which is the Office of the President anyway, so that they get to know that there are these arrangements happening. And therefore that being the Office of the Commander-in-Chief would therefore move within the same line of command that I made reference to earlier on. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Chair. I was asking that deliberately because I think we have a point in question where the late Raf Kasambala, I think there were witnesses who sat where you were sitting last week, and I think it was brought to the attention of the committee that there were some phone calls that were made by friends to let Kasambala to procure the aircraft. So I just want to also to confirm that there was no memo deployed in the procurement of the services of the flight that carried the remains of late Kasambala. I think we have on record that our colleagues who were at the funeral were making calls, etc., etc. So I just want you to confirm that there's no other exception apart from the Vice President. Chairperson, moving on. Chair, the last question would be related to what Mwanza Central was asked regarding the, I think it's Mulanje North, regarding the wreckage. You might want to respond clearly to say, within the preservation of evidence, your ministry has done the needful to make sure that that wreckage can also be inspected in case we want to go back there to make sure that we have evidence. Because what we saw in Zomba, as the Honorable Mulanje North has said, I think most of us were left unsatisfied because these are pieces of the wreckage. I don't think that was the preservation of evidence, but we might want to confirm if that wreckage can still be used in case of we want to use it as evidence. Chair, submit.
So you might answer this question, which will also answer the question of Mulanje North at the same time.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. I wish to thank honorable member for Mulanje North on the rules that are supposed to be followed, and of course with the specific reference to the donia, whether preservation of evidence was adhered to. Chairperson and members, as you may agree with me, when you're talking about preservation, obviously there's also a time limit to which you can preserve this. So in this specific example, when you're talking about this accident happening in Nkata Bay, June 10, 2024, and today, 22nd of June 2026, whether when we're talking about preservation of evidence, this aircraft should have been in Tunga till today. Perhaps, Chair, that may not necessarily be attainable. However, the evidence that is there at Zomba Air Base, you might have seen that perhaps it's not in the original form that it could have been whilst it was at Tunga, but you might have found it if you've been there. I've been there myself. It had to be, some pieces had to be cut in different ways so that they could transport the wreckage. But at least the wreckage is there as part of the evidence, but certainly the wreckage is not at its original site where the accident happened, but the wreckage is there. And the wreckage is there as part of preservation of evidence. Because if somebody wants to see if at all there was indeed a plane crash, they can go to Zomba and see the remains of the plane crash. But they will not be at the site where the actual accident happened, because practically it would also have been difficult to preserve this evidence at the site where this accident happened in terms of provision of security and other attendant requirements. So yes, we are still adhering to this, particularly in as far as preservation of evidence is concerned, because the wreckage is there. We haven't destroyed it. It's there. It might just be that it's not in its original form as and when the accident happened. Zomba City South, you talked about this committee getting to know that it were friends that procured the services of Malawi Air Force with regard to hiring this aircraft, whether there are any documentation. I have information that there is documentation that was provided by Malawi Air Force to the friends that requested the Malawi Air Force to provide these services to transport the remains of Leti Kasambara. So these documents are available at the Malawi Air Force. I think Zomba City South, you did ask about new plans regarding, I did not pick this one, right? Maybe it's the one that I already responded to.
Chairperson, I did ask the Honorable Minister as he's procuring new planes.
Okay, yeah. So yes, as we are procuring new planes, new aircrafts, yes, we are aware because we had to undertake an assessment of the existing aircrafts and identify the gaps. So we have some aircrafts, for example, that are lying idle at Chileka Airport, the MA 600 aircrafts. I think there are 2 of them. So we are aware of the challenges that we're experiencing as not to use them. Again, the same issues of resource constraints, but we are working on making sure that these aircrafts should go into, they should be flying, working with the suppliers of these aircrafts, and also with regard to the resource constraints, working with the Minister of Finance and Treasury, that we can secure some funding to pay off the obligations that are making us unable to use the aircrafts right now. So yes, Chair, we are aware of the existing aircrafts, and we are making efforts to make sure that we also use them, much as we are also making efforts to acquire the others that we want to acquire. Thank you very much, Chair.
Mwanza?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Honourable Minister, if this issue is of, if it's a security issue and you cannot respond here, I'll be fine with it. But maybe through the chair, you can provide the information. I want you to probably, inform this committee. If our military is able to conduct its activities in any condition, rainy, cold weather, under the dark, do they have the apparatus to operate or to conduct its activities under such conditions? If you cannot respond it now, but if you can probably finish that information to this committee, maybe by close of business tomorrow. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Minister?
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Member for Mwanza Central. Thank you very much for at least giving me the preface and that advantage that if I cannot respond now, maybe I can provide this information to the committee later on, because indeed, Chair, just like I did respond to the others, if I'm to stay here that our military is not able, what would be the impression? But that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. In terms of the capabilities, the readiness of our military, of our Malawi Defense Force, if you really need that comprehensive report of our readiness, Chair, I may have to again check with the security protocols as to how much disclosure we can make with regard to our readiness and our capability to operate in different weather or conditions, be it raining, fog, dry, hilly, or you name it, water. We can provide at a later stage, but having checked to what extent can we share this information. So thank you very much, Mwanza Central, for at least giving me that, that perhaps I can share later on and not necessarily within this. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Chair, just to emphasize that information is very important, I'll give you the background. The accident happened in the morning. Search started around 4. And at some point, search was stopped because weather conditions could not allow. That's why we need that information. It's very important for this inquiry. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mulanje Mode? Sorry,
Chair,
a little longer.
Chair, I just want Mwanza Central to confirm that the search started at 4. That's what he said. But I don't remember to have that detail that it started at 4. So I want to confirm if that is the fact that it started at 4. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, we were together at Ntungwa. This information I'm providing to the Honorable Minister is what the police told us at Ntungwa. I may not be exact on the time, but
Luntar Television, bringing wisdom into your home.
maybe around, yeah? But this question is specifically on the search that was stopped. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mwanza Central. I think the facts on when it started will be verified, okay, when we go to search and rescue. I think we've had a good 2 hours with the Minister of Defense. If there's any lingering question, we can pose that question now so we can move on. Doa Kasangazi?
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to object to Mwanza Central on his request that the Honorable Minister here should bring information which will not be tested by us through questions. I don't think that will be fair. If the Honorable Minister here brings information which will not be tested via questions, then this committee will be prejudiced. So my view is that if the Honorable Minister is to bring any information, then he has to come back for cross-examination for him to be asked questions on that information. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, no, well noted. Honorable Minister, mine is just a simple question. You stated about the Defense Council meeting regularly. I don't know how regularly do they meet?
Chairperson will meet every quarter. Of course, in some circumstances, as and when there is a matter that needs to be considered, but regularly and as per the Act, ordinary meetings of the Council are every quarter, but we also do have extraordinary meetings. Thank you.
So does the Defense Council approve the budget for Malawi Defense Force? Is it submitted to the Council for approval?
Yes, Chairperson, as I mentioned that the Council receives reports from the Commander of the Defense Force as well as the Minister of Defense. So these are some of the matters that are considered by the Defense Council.
One of the questions most Malawians have is the distinction on security matters pertaining to the military. Do you have a set criteria on what is confidential, cannot be discussed or disclosed, so that we are very clear on which areas we can go, what are the no-go zone areas? As it stands, transparency and accountability is a challenge, but maybe you can explain to us what are the no-go zone areas and what is there any set criteria?
Chairperson, the military in its nature is a defense and security organ. In which case, I wouldn't sit here to say, you know, these are the specifics that would not be considered to be security issues or defense issues. Let it be known that the military, the Malawi Defense Force, by its nature and by its establishment, and looking at the objectives for which it was set, it is a security organization, and indeed most of its activities are security and defense activities. So much so that, yes, most of it would be no-go zone areas, and I think that's why even entry into our cantonments or establishments is highly restricted, just entry. Chair, disclosure of some of this military information, most of it is highly confidential, Chair. Thank you very much.
My last one, you have stated that recommendations have been made to procure new equipment, one of which is a black box. That the black box must be fitted in most of the military aircrafts. Can you confirm here that what you're stating is that there was no black box in the Donia 228? Or not? Is that the implication?
Chairperson, in the Donia that got involved in this accident, I would say that there was no, what is called, I think the honorable member for Lilongwe Mode mentioned of the voice recorder, cockpit voice recorder, flight data recorder, and I think most of these are the ones that are referred as to the black box, for the reason that it wasn't there for the reason that, as it were, it is a state aircraft and a military aircraft. And I mentioned earlier on that according to Chicago Convention, military aircrafts or state aircrafts it's not mandatory for them to have the black box. But specifically for this one, the Donia that got involved in the accident, the reports that I've seen, according to the reports that I've seen, the reports are saying that, because I wasn't there, but the reports that I've seen are saying that the black box was not there. So this is in accordance, according to the reports. Not me, because I wasn't there.
Okay, because we are in the process of gathering evidence. So anything you state, we will take it very seriously. Are you suggesting that the MASPA must be pursued further? Because we haven't yet concluded. You're basing this on the reports. It's not something that you know for a fact.
Chairperson, yes. My answer is yes, that has got to be pursued further. Because I wasn't there, I cannot confirm that this aircraft, this specific aircraft, did not have a black box. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that clarity. Honorable Minister, we've had extensive discussions with you, and we appreciate your time you have taken to explain to us the relationship between MDF and the Minister of Defense and the reporting lines. This will help us for making recommendations and also clarity on our report. We appreciate your time, and we don't take you for granted. There were areas where it was sensitive, we couldn't go to, where we appreciate for the sake of national security, and there's a space we cannot go to. If you have any other comments, remarks you would like to make before you leave, you're most welcome to do so.
Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of this ad hoc committee, I wish to reiterate my gratitude for inviting me to appear before this committee and provide information that we could provide as a Minister of Defense, as well as part of it as a Malawi Defense Force. I'm aware that you'll be meeting the Malawi Defense Force later on, particularly the CDF, the Chief of Defense Force. I wish to reiterate and put it on record that the issue of the black box is not an issue that I can confirm that it was not there or it was there because I was not there. What we are talking about here is I'm saying it would be very important to be having this piece of equipment even in state aircrafts, although the Chicago Convention says it might not be mandatory. But I think it would be very important for us to be considering, particularly when we think and consider that we are using these aircrafts, for example, for disaster responses, for search and rescue. So to undertake such kind of functionality would certainly require such kind of pieces of equipment in such kind of equipment that we use. Otherwise, on behalf of the Ministry of Defense, my colleagues that are here, allow me, Chairperson, to thank my team members for putting all this together to allow me to appear before this committee with this information that we've provided. We remain available beyond this time that we are leaving this room, should you require more information from the Ministry of Defense as well as from the Malawi Defense Force. I wish you all the best as you continue to undertake this noble course. I'm aware that it's not an easy job, but let God guide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister and the Principal Secretary. You may take leave now.